Well, we have the pleasure of having one of my friends, Erin Ramsey, on the podcast today. She is the host of You're Such a Catch. And I had the pleasure of going on your podcast, which you so graciously hosted me and did such an amazing job, like creating a safe space for me to really open up and share my story again after I had shared it on our pod. And it was like, I just really felt like I really connected with you.
Oh my gosh. Same. And it's so funny because that episode that we did got so much feedback because I think it was just so real and relatable. And it was just two girls having a conversation, you know, with ears that are flies on the wall.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was beautiful. And I'm so happy to be here. I think you guys are great. I mean, I remember first meeting you. And of course I did the, quintessential, oh, you guys must be a couple. And you're like, oh no.
That never happens to us.
I know, you're like,
never. Yeah.
Everywhere. And I was like, oh, sorry to be part of that, crew.
It's fine. Well, so I told my story on your podcast and, as open as you want to be, if you want to just give us a little bit of insight of what makes Erin, where you came from, how you got to now.
Yeah. Oh gosh, how much time do we have? So it's funny. So, I grew up in a small town. I feel like I've kind of picked poorly in terms of relationships, probably like my whole life. And I know where that stems from now. So I'm happy to say that I've done so much work on myself. And the podcast has been a huge conduit for that work happening. I think when you have a platform, it kind of holds you accountable. And especially if I'm talking to, my community about like self-love and self-worth, if I'm not exercising that in my day-to-day, then who am I? And authenticity is super important to me. So I went to school in San Diego. Again, I kind of left a bad relationship, in high school, got out of that, kind of moved as far away from my family as I could. But then I fell in love with Southern California and I wanted to stay down here. And I feel like that's where my life kind of pivoted, because when you're trying to kind of force something, you make different decisions than if something's meant for you. And if that makes sense, if you're truly in alignment. And so somewhere after college, I started dating a man that I was working with. It was my first job out of school, definitely not in the field that I studied. I went to school for, it's funny, nobody knows what this is, but I went to school for human environmental sciences, which is essentially like home ec. Okay. It is.
Like sewing?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, like sewing. Yes, exactly. And I had a concentration in fashion merchandising, a minor in business. The only thing I use is the business. But I wanted to stay in Southern California so bad. I, took the first job that was offered to me that would allow me to stay down here and be able to afford it. And at that job is where I started dating my ex-husband. And so we dated for 4 years. And if you were Erin, if you could do it all over again, is that how you would have seen it? Probably not. But, we were good friends. We had a great time. I was in my early 20s. And it just was we had been together for 4 years. And the next step is getting married. And all of our friends were married. And we were the only ones who weren't. And they were starting to have a family. And, we got the question all the time, well, when are you guys getting married? And I was never the girl to, really think about oh, my wedding dress is going to look like this and I'm going to be getting married here. And these are the songs that I just wasn't that girl. But at the same time, I was such a people pleaser and there was really no catalyst for us to break up. So when he did ask me to marry him, I said yes. And then I just remember kind of being in the process of, doing our wedding invitations and that wedding prep and him not really having any interest in, doing those things. and me just thinking, like, should you be doing this? But at that time, I had already sent out my save the dates and, like family was already notified and all of those things. And so it just felt like the right thing to do, which unfortunately, like I now know, like, if it doesn't feel good inside, like if your intuition's telling you something, don't move forward. But back then, I did. And so we got married. We were married for 3 years. And then literally one day I came home from work and I remember it like it was yesterday. I came in, I sat on our couch. I was playing with our little dog and he was behind me at like the island in the kitchen. And he just said, Erin, I don't want to be married and I don't want to have children. And I mean, I was laughing like on the inside because I'm like, well, I'm your wife and you also have a child like from, a girlfriend in high school. So you're not really doing well,
with the things that you don't want to do.
Yeah, I was like, this isn't working out for you. But it was a weird, almost like outer body experience because again, I was such a people pleaser and I would have probably done anything and everything I could have to make that work in, most circumstances, just because in my mind, that's what you should do. And my grandparents were married 74 years until my grandpa passed, or they'd still be married. My parents just celebrated 46 years in earlier April. And I'm the first person in my family to get divorced. But in that moment, something just came over me and I was like, all right, well then, I'm not sure what we're doing here. So I think, it'd be wise if you moved out. And that's when like my eyes were open because we had lived together in probably 4 different places. And every time we moved, it was always Erin doing all the work. You know what I mean? It was like Erin calling the moving truck, Erin, organizing everything, finding the new place, setting up the, back then we used to actually have to have cable, but like all those things. And so to watch him do that was like really telling, it was like, okay. And so he told me that on a Wednesday. That following Friday, the moving truck pulled up and I let him take everything he wanted materialistic wise. Like I remember that conversation with my dad and him just saying like, Erin, it's a TV. Who cares if you just bought it? Like you can buy another one. Like let him take whatever, you know what I mean? Like the important thing is you get to keep your puppy and keep your home because it was your money that, went to the down payment. And I did. And then that's where like my healing journey kind of started and whoa boy.
So can I ask you a question? In that moment where he's sort of behind you and says like, I don't want to be married and all that stuff. Had you up until that moment, like felt like, did you feel happy? Like, were you happy in the marriage yourself?
No, but I think I was in such a place in my life and that it was so important to me to make sure everybody around me was happy and like their needs were being met. And I never really checked in with like, oh, what does Erin really want? How does Erin really feel? I was probably just like numb to it and like going through the motions, So no. And like I mentioned, when we were dating, like there were no real pivotal moments where it's like, oh, we should break up. Like there wasn't any like infidelity or, cheating or anything. But what I noticed more is like, as I got older and was like more mature and like, in my role and working and like also kind of understanding that, okay, we're a partnership in this house. Like I realized that I did the majority of things. And I think I probably had some resentment there because, he would kind of operate as if he were single, in the sense, like he wasn't coming together and like truly being my partner. And I just don't think he was capable of that.
I was going to say, well, Erin, he didn't want to be married.
I know.
So why would he act like your husband?
Exactly. Like, I mean, it's just so mind blowing. Like, it's like, well, why did you? Because I didn't like, I'm sure you guys have watched like the ultimatum. Like, I definitely did not issue this man an ultimatum and be like, marry me. Like, no, like that did not happen. We probably would have just kept dating until whatever, one person. I don't know. So it's just funny. It feels like a part of my life that didn't happen, but fully did.
Well, it's pretty like how you talked us through the details of it. It's that moment is so pivotal. And I'm just curious, like in that moment, was there almost like a sense of relief?
I think so. And that's why I think like it came over me to just like acquiesce, and to not be like, oh, let's, work on this. Let's go to counseling. Let's do, and we did like premarital counseling because the person who married us, that was like kind of a requirement, and again, like hindsight's always 2020. So I can think back to even like those sessions and thinking like, as, the pastor was talking about like, key differences in the way in which we were raised and like our core beliefs that, are ingrained in us. Like, whoa, red flag, like, where is it? Let's wave it but at the time I was just like, oh, like, oh, you can't control your circumstances. And so like, I'm sorry that was like your upbringing in your childhood. And like, now I know like, okay, if those things happen, like that person really truly needs to like work on themselves first. And it needs to be like done separately. Like, I mean, I'm a huge, proponent for therapy, and probably my biggest, like, if I could do it all over again, I would have immediately called a therapist when I got divorced, because I didn't. And I tried to like do it all on my own. And that was not the jam, you guys, not the jam.
Well, I'm wondering, can we like rewind? Because one of our questions for you is like, because I really relate to what you're saying about like being disconnected from your own needs. And so I'm curious, like, what were after the work you've done now, like when you look back on your early life, like what were those experiences that shaped kind of like this pattern that you had of like how you show up in relationships and how you care for others and kind of not really being aware of or advocating for yourself and stuff like that.
So, obviously I mentioned like, my grandparents were married for so long. My parents are still married. My aunt and uncles on both sides, like still married. And so I always had a really, good place to seek like mentorship, role models, that type of thing. Like I witnessed like very healthy love, very healthy relationships. But when I was in high school, it would have been my junior year, I am a victim of sexual assault. And so I never like correlated, the two. But I think that one moment that happened to me then really shaped the way in which I looked at everything moving forward. So because that happened to me, I then felt like I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't worthy, or like I had this like, tarnish on who I was. And I think, again, from not really valuing what therapy could do, I internalized a lot of it. And we all know, like, when you internalize stuff like that, like you become a product of your thoughts, and your thoughts aren't necessarily your reality, but you start to build this narrative and you start to like believe this narrative. And so I think that made me go through life choosing partners that weren't necessarily good matches, but were what I thought I deserved, if that makes any sense. And so it's taken years to truly like break through that. But I feel like I'm in such a place in my life right now that, now I use my voice, to help others. Now I talk about my experience, in such a way that I'm like, I own it. It's part of my story. It happened to me, just like, other things have happened to you guys. It's just everybody has their own trauma and their own events in their life. But like, this was mine. And now that I see the impact and effects it had on me, I can work through that. So when I put myself back out there into the dating pool, I'm not leading with like that false narrative that I've told myself all these years.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I know that's probably tough to talk about. And I mean, I think whenever there's parts of us, like as like like a survivor myself, like when, like, I don't know if to you, when you say it out of your mouth, it's still piercing. But also I'm wondering if, like, because I've heard you a couple times say like you didn't start therapy soon enough, and like you kind of like wish you had, and you hadn't placed the value on therapy. And I'm just wondering if you can offer yourself more grace with that, of like, maybe it's not what you should have done. There's no blame here. Like, after your sexual assault, after your marriage, like, it's not your fault that these things happen to you, and you found therapy in your own time because of your own strength. And so I don't know if there's like, that's what I'm hearing, but maybe that's not right.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I have beat myself up, probably my whole life for, these different things. Like for a long time, I, carried like a black cloud over my head because I was divorced, and another thing that was kind of like, oh, like you're the black sheep of the family or whatnot, So I think grace is a great word. Again, I think the way I kind of see it is like, I've accepted that as like part of my story, and I wouldn't change it necessarily, because I don't think I would be here talking to you guys today if that hadn't have happened to me, you know what I mean? And I do feel like by using my voice and talking about my experience, I'm able to help a lot of other people, or just be more relatable or whatnot, than if I, had the quintessential, like, husband, like what we were just talking about before we jumped on, like the husband that, 2.5 kids, the white picket fence, and, the little dog or whatever. Like I really color outside the lines. And so I don't think that would ever be like really my journey. But I think the reason I emphasize the therapy so much is because if somebody else is listening that's going through something similar, or even remotely, has some parallels, like just an encouragement to be open to that process sooner. And the only reason why is because I think that at that time, I mean, young 20s, like I just didn't have the skill set to be able to kind of like work through those thoughts. And if you can imagine never really seeking the assistance or support, like with the sexual assault, then carrying that, into this marriage. And so it all compiles, right? And then it becomes like a bigger, mountain to kind of like pick apart and get to kind of like the root cause, and then, really truly heal from there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When you were talking, I had a flashback of like, I had a medium session with this woman that we've had on our podcast, which I like love. I've had 2 sessions with her now. Well, kind of like 7, because every time we met with her, I was like, what is this going to be? And like, can you give me details on this? And, but she said that one of the things that I'm going to be doing is being an advocate for women. And my grandmother showed up in our session, and my grandmother had been divorced and then married again. And she spoke through Jennifer to me and said, do you know how many people are married and unhappy? So like, even though it's like from the outside, we're like, well, they're married, they have kids, they have the white picket fence, they have the house, they have the double income, which is so nowadays, all of that. But like, we don't know if they're happy or not, and all I know is like, yeah, I struggle, but like, I don't want to be that. Like, I don't want to be trapped in an unhappy marriage again.
Oh no, absolutely. No. I totally agree with you. It is interesting. It's interesting the kind of status though that we give in society for people who are married, right? Like it's just peculiar. So Leanna, do you mark when you go to the doctor's office, and you have to fill out your form, do you mark divorced? I'm like, why is there even a category for like, what do you care? Like I'm single. I mark single. I'm like,
do you?
Yeah. Okay. I'm like, that bugs me. I don't know why it bugs me.
I'm so honest that I'm like, yeah, I'm divorced. But you're right. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's like, oh, she's divorced. She's probably like, we need to give her medicine.
Right? I'm like, I want to know. We should
ask for depression. Like, yeah. Which actually, that's not a bad public health strategy, right? Like to actually catch people who are divorced and trying to do it all on their own. And if you go to a good doctor, like that person should be taking a holistic view of your wellness. And, and like.
But it's like the eye doctor.
Okay, yeah, the eye doctor probably not. Right. But like if you're going to your GP, like actually there's studies that show like if the GP is like it's so interesting because I screenshotted it when I like registered for my physical or whatever. I had to answer all these questions online. And like 2 of them were like, have you had any like thoughts of suicide and like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and part of me is like, oh, I'm glad that they're asking this question, but I totally see how it feels stigmatizing. Right. And I think you're right. Like in so many ways, it's a status thing to be married, to be like, oh, me and my husband, me and my wife and blah, blah, blah. And like, and it's easy as a single person to feel like less. For me, that was one of the hardest things about turning 40. Like 30, I was okay with. I was like, I got plenty of time, like blah, blah, blah. And then 40, I was like, what's like thinking other people were thinking this about me and thinking about myself of like, oh, like what's wrong with me that I don't have this, like that I haven't been able to make a relationship work, in the past 40 years.
Well, I mean, I guess give yourself some credit for the first 18.
That's true. That's fair.
Yeah.
Erin, I'm curious, like, when you look back on your healing journey, like even starting from like, are there sort of pivotal moments or like stages that you can identify, like what was the moment you decided like I need help, and like how did you like I also think I was just talking to a student who's a very high achieving young woman, and I think high achieving women especially feel like it's sort of like weakness. I should be strong enough to do this on my own, and I'm like, actually asking for help is the strongest thing. It's the epitome of strength and courage. Right. But anyways, and any thoughts on like pivotal moments or stages in your journey?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been like a high achiever and, very, very independent. Like I still consider myself very independent, but not too independent that I don't want to create space for the right person in my life, So, I mean, this journey has been quite interesting. So I've tried to, work through some of these things with different people in the past, but maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe I didn't divulge like all the things that were going on in my mind. So I would kind of like take a few steps forward, but I wouldn't actually be able to like cross the finish line. And in early 2020, I really went through and did some crazy like journaling. I went through like all these different exercises about like, where do I see myself in 5 years? And like, what does my day-to-day look like? And, who's in my life, not just like in a romantic sense, but like also platonic. Like, am I keeping good company? Are the people around me like helping me in my journey, or are they holding me back? And then I think hitting the pandemic, right? Like we were forced to really rethink things. And I don't know how you guys felt, but, being quarantined in my home by myself, I was like, oh, this is not what I want for my life. Like I would love to have somebody, to just be here with me, to make a meal in the kitchen and, snuggle on the couch and watch a movie. Like that's all kind of like what I wanted. That just human interaction when you couldn't have it, you almost took it for granted, right? Because pre that, I was the girl out, every Friday, Saturday night, Sundays at the football games, like living her best, but not really pausing to like reflect and go, okay, you're having fun and you're doing all these things, but like, is this truly like what you want for the next 25 years of your life? Or do you want something else for yourself? And if you're telling yourself that you want, X, then why are you doing Y? Like, it was a lot of just self-reflection. And then at the time, my corporate job actually said, well, gosh, we're in the middle of this pandemic. Like people are probably in need of help. Like we're going to gift everybody 8 free therapy sessions. And I was like, how cool is that? Right. And a lot of people were like, not going to take advantage of it. But I was like, it's free. You can do it on company time. Like, why would I not?
Yeah.
Right.
You're like, I'm getting paid to go to therapy.
Yeah. I was like, what's the worst that could happen? I heal, like, like I learn, like something happens. I have this like Oprah aha moment, this epiphany, like sign me up. And so I did. And it was, I think, a combination of me being fully ready. This woman who, her technique, I will tell you, at first I was like, why does she just keep going silent? Like, why? And I was like, finally, I was like, oh, I get it. She wants me to come up with the answer. Like, I'm waiting for her to tell me, like, I already freaking know the answer, but like, she's like pausing, awkward silence. And so then once I caught on, I was like, oh, I get it. You're leading me down a path and you want me to like fill in the blanks, and I'm very capable. And so I just think she kind of helped me like put these pieces together that were still kind of missing in the puzzle. It was like I had the perimeter of the puzzle done and a lot of the inside, but there were like, maybe 15 or 20 pieces that all looked very similar, and I just wasn't sure where they fit. And she really helped me with that. And so I never saw her. I only know her voice. So I always laugh because I'm like, one day I'm going to be like at Whole Foods and I'm going to be like, buying my, sushi or whatever. And I'm going to hear her from behind me and just like, not even say anything, just be like that cringy stranger that's like, and give her like a big old bear hug, because I feel like, she was so pivotal in like my journey. So, and then, I got laid off from my job, but I decided it was worth it enough for me to kind of like continue to see her even on my own. And so we did until, I was like, I feel really good. Like, I feel like I am capable. And then I proved that, which, we're kind of jumping ahead, but I did, manifest a partner towards the end of kind of the pandemic, and things were great, for a long time until they weren't. But like I told you, with the platform, with the podcast, with talking about self-love, self-worth, like, who would I be to stay in something that I knew wasn't right? And so for the first time in my entire life, when that, feeling came over me and I had that pit in my gut and my intuition was like going off, instead of being like, it's probably fine, there's probably, a good explanation for this, I was like, nope. And I, had the tough conversation and I called off the relationship, and I never looked back, like never responded to another text, like took him off social immediately, like all the things, just because that's not what I want. You know what I mean? That, like, I'm very clear on what I want now. So
wow.
That is so powerful. I love that so much.
Oh, thank you. I mean, honestly, you guys, like, I'm so proud of myself too. And when my friends, when even a random stranger would be like, oh, I'm so sorry, like that your relationship didn't work out, I was like, please don't be sorry. Like, don't, like, please be proud of me, because like, it took fucking 40 years to get to this moment where I could like advocate for myself and know my worth and like, just really stand up for what I truly want. And I, like you said, Leanna, I don't want to go back to another unhappy relationship. I don't, like, it's not worth it. I'd rather be by myself, and happy and single,
Mm-hmm. Are there things that like work for you to be able, to be able to be aware of your own needs, or like what was different that you were able to like sort of recognize it in this new relationship and just be like, nope, goodbye?
So, so interesting. So I didn't know like a lot about narcissism when I went into that. I had like a person who had been in a narcissistic relationship on my podcast. She talked about it. So I was like kind of aware, but I didn't recognize until long after my relationship ended that that's what I had endured. And so, of course, in the beginning, like that love bombing phase, like everything was great. Everything was wonderful. Mm-hmm. And I started to notice probably like maybe 5-6 months in, like something is off here, because we used to completely click in this regard. And now I'm feeling like I'm having to like go beyond myself to kind of make him happy or solicit that same response from him. And so I started to kind of like take note of those things. And again, like super big into journaling and such. And I just kind of noticed this pattern and thought to myself, wow, like it shouldn't be this hard. Like, it shouldn't be this hard to kind of get somebody's, love or, like how come I had it like a month ago, but now it's like, ooh, I'm fighting tooth and nail to like get that approval or that validation. And we had tons of discussions about like, what's your love language? And, and we had done a lot of like exercises together. Like, I shared with him my like 5-year vision. And I was like, would you write your 5-year plan so we can kind of like, before he heard mine, like kind of overlay them and go, are we on the same trajectory here? Like, do we want the same things out of life? Because I don't know about you guys, but at this stage of the game, I mean, I'm all happy to have like another friend or whatnot, but I don't want to pursue something romantic with somebody if like their end goal is to never have a family or to never be married again. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't think, people are going to change. Like typically they, have their position on that. And I'm definitely not of the belief, like you can change somebody. I'm just like, I respect you for your wishes. We're just not a match. And so we had done those exercises. So always in the back of my mind, I had thought, well, no, he wants the same things. Like, he wants somebody to build with, and he wants to, create a family and all these things. But the actions and the verbal and written didn't align. And so, we had a conversation about it. And I thought that his response to the conversation was peculiar as well. I felt like I was kind of being run in circles a little bit. And again, I just thought to myself, there's something off here. And as much as I want like the potential that's there to keep going and, because I like having somebody, I like, how we have our little routine together, I like our deep discussions when we have them, but it wasn't the same because, assuming like, I don't necessarily know that he's been diagnosed that, but now that I know the pattern of behavior and stuff, my guess would be, or my assumption would be that I was being put through the discard phase. And so he was spending less time concentrating on our relationship and focusing on, what he needed to do to kind of like meet my needs, because he was spending that energy or investing it elsewhere, anticipating that he was already moving on.
Wow. I'm sure. I mean, I'm just going to keep firing questions.
That's fine. Aaron, yeah. I'm just listening.
How are you approaching relationships right now? Like, what are the most important things that you want from a relationship right now?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, right after we broke up, I was like, I kind of said, I'm not ready to date. I mean, my heart was broken, you know what I mean? And I think I was grieving not only the loss of the relationship, but the loss of like who I thought was my best friend, because we really were, like best friends, and also the loss of the potential, because for the first time since my divorce in 2011, I really saw myself, marrying this person, and like saw myself again, like, oh, having that opportunity to be a mother. And so that was very, very difficult, but I also felt like I needed like a small win. Like I needed to connect with somebody again and to feel as if I could do it. Like I didn't want to like swear off dating and, all those things, like, put some sort of hard stop. And so through an organic way, actually through a mutual friend, which you guys know, through Erin, she had introduced me to somebody, and we had gone on actually I didn't anticipate it being a date, but we ended up hanging out, and it kind of turned into like a date, and we saw each other for a few times. And, I recognized really quickly that we weren't a match either, but it was like almost great for my confidence to be like, okay, like you still got it. Like, you know what I mean? And what I mean by got it is like, you still know what you want. And like, you still can recognize early on that if it's not the right thing, and you can get out of it and still keep a friendship with the person and do it like amicably. And so that's what I did. You know what I mean? I just said, you know, I've enjoyed spending time with you and this has been great. I just don't think that we're aligned, and it's fine. And we're still friends and such. And then I thought, you know what? Okay, you got that under your belt. Like, you can do this again, but like, continue your healing process. So right now I'm in a funny stage. So I had downloaded apps probably like 2 months ago. And so I have 3 apps on my phone. So I have RAYA, just because I am that creepy person like who likes to see who's in the area. So, and I'll just be honest, I downloaded RAYA around Super Bowl because I'm obsessed with the NFL. And it was more so like, okay, where's Deebo Samuels? And like, should I like just show up at his hotel and be like, hi, like, I don't even want to like date you. I just want to like play catch with you.
You're like, it says in your location that you're only 0.5 miles away. So I have like 4 directions I can go.
I'm not kidding. Like, and they definitely got better at that because, you know, back in the day on RAYA, you could pinpoint like they are at whatever bar in wherever.
Oh, yeah. So for people who don't know, RAYA is a dating app like exclusively for sort of like famous people or high profile. Like, how does it work? Like, don't you have to be approved?
What was like the process?
Yeah. So it is so funny. So I've had RAYA since, oh God, it's been years now. But we had like a chain. So like, it was back when my brother was single, like my brother is now engaged and all that. So this is like years, 3-4 years ago, but we had like a chain of people who wanted to be on RAYA. Right. And everybody got like one invitation. So it worked this like system where when it was your turn and you got your invitation, you had to give it to the next person in the line. And then we kind of went like that. So somewhere along, you know, the way, my name came up and I got my thing and then I passed it on. So it wasn't like I could give it to whoever. We had like this formal like thing worked out. And I don't even know who was the first person who like got us into that little rotation. But the funniest thing ever is when I first got on the app, it shows you by location, right? Like it shows you like, okay. And I lived in Manhattan Beach at the time. And so every day it would show me like who's in Manhattan Beach, but it shows you guys and girls. Like it doesn't separate that. And so the 2 guys that were always in Manhattan Beach were my brother and my brother's best friend. And I was like, okay, like this app sucks. You know?
That's so funny.
I already have both their numbers. Like,
can you hook a girl up and get
me on RAYA? I have to figure out where that, you know, lineage of invitations is, because it's far surpassed me, and figure out how that works. But I will tell you, it's just, I mean, you know, I don't want to say it like that, but like, it is just like the other ones, you know, I've gone on some nice dates from it, but I more use it as like silly, like a novelty, you know what I mean? So like when I travel to the away football games, I'm always like, okay, which players are here? Like, you know, where are they at type deal, you know, because I'm just such a football fan. And again, it's not even like to like date them or anything. It's just like, just to have like the conversation and be like, so let's talk about this play. You know what I mean?
That's so funny. Okay, but you have RAYA and you have some other apps.
What are
right
now. I have RAYA, I have Bumble. I downloaded Bumble again because I like the idea of just being able to control who I, you know, conversated with, because a big deal for me when I came out of my relationship was not, and I know this sounds like wonky, but obviously I'm, you know, a mindset coach and such. So I understand like the chemical reaction that I was getting from my relationship, you know, when I got a text every morning or a voice note, or like, you know, we were big communicators in like a video message. So if you can imagine having all of that every single day and then going like to nothing, your brain wants that hit, you know, of dopamine. And I'm like, I did not want to get that from another person or from a dating app like that, you know, response. So I was very cognizant of that. I know that probably sounds crazy to somebody who hasn't, you know, spent the time to kind of learn about that, but, you know, your brain becomes wired and used to those, you know, engagements and interactions, especially with the other person. And we had such a routine together that breaking that routine was very difficult. So I had Bumble for a long time and didn't really ever, you know, swipe. I would look, but I wouldn't like really engage. And then Hinge has always historically been like one of my favorite apps because I thought it leads to the most in-person meetups. But I had to get to the point where I was like, actually ready and willing to meet up with somebody.
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, first of all, I wish Hinge was better out here for females. I have found it's not good at all of the guys that I want to meet end up being in like the LA area. Like the Inland Empire guys, just, they're like, no, we don't have enough time for Hinge. But like, I'd rather have the girl reach out to me on Bumble.
Really?
Yeah. But also it's interesting that you say like the connection, like almost like a brain response to like, you know, morning texts and all of that. And it's interesting because I'm kind of where you are now, where I used to be so obsessed. Like I used to like talk with someone on the apps and like love a good morning without even meeting the person.
Oh, okay.
And now like I matched with this guy this past week and he like texted me good morning. And I'm thinking like, we haven't even met. Like, why are you texting me good morning? Like, to me, that's like, okay, this guy wants to get laid. Like he's doing all of the things and clearly doesn't have a lot of boundaries. And like, also like, if you want to talk, just like ask a question. Like, why are you saying good morning? It was like really weird to me. So then I canceled our date.
That's funny. That's like the biggest 180 anyone has ever pulled in their life. Like I vividly remember you saying stuff to me. You're like, why can't he just send me a good morning text?
Okay,
like,
that is someone I'm seeing though. That would be someone I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Dating someone like, you know, dating or in a relationship. Yes, I want a morning text.
No, but what I'm saying is even at this stage, that used to be like the biggest green flag 100%. For you. You would be like, yes.
Yeah.
Like he sends morning texts. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing?
That's the best.
That's hilarious. I love that you called off your date. I mean, but that just goes to show, like, you know what you want, and you're like, this isn't it.
Yeah, it seemed to me, and like, there's like a couple other things. I was going to talk about this in our intro, but like, he wasn't from here. He lived somewhere else, and he wasn't going to be here for like a few more months. But he said, he was like, well, you'll have to come up and visit me in Seattle, like all this stuff. And I'm thinking like, dude, I haven't met you. I'm not going to meet you one time and then take a trip up to Seattle. And now you're sending me a good morning text. Like this guy's looking to get laid, you know? And like, why am I wasting my time? Like, so I actually was like texting with him up until 3 hours before the date. And because we had like talked for a couple of days about when we were going to meet, blah, blah, blah. And I just was like, this is a huge step for me. And I really needed to do this because in the past, I would have just done it. I would have just met him, but I didn't have a good gut feeling about it. And I didn't want to waste my time. I wanted to spend time with other friends. So I sent him a text. I said, hey, I think I'm not open to meeting anymore. And here's why. And like, I wish you the best. And he was just like, okay, I totally understand.
Wow.
I'm proud of you for doing that. And I'm so proud of you for being like open and honest about the reason why and not just making up an excuse, like, you know what I mean, why you couldn't go. But how good does that feel like when you're like honoring yourself? And I think that's what this journey, you know, of my last relationship was for me. It was like, whoa, like, okay, Erin can be her own advocate. Erin can be her own best friend. Like, you know, this is where like the self-love piece really comes into play. It's like, okay, I got this.
Yeah. So Erin, what are the, like, if you can just give us like, I don't know how you want to break this down, but like, what are the things you're specifically looking for?
Oh my gosh. Well, I could pull up my note on my phone that I made on August 9th, 2015 to the universe and said, I went blah, 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 blah. But, you know, it's so funny because, I think, you know, when you're younger, you put things on your list, you know, that, and it's not a list like, oh, he's not 6 foot, like, bye-bye. It's not that. It's just, you know, like if I want to attract this man, like, you know, these are the things that I would want to come my way. But I think they've definitely more from the physical, like a physical attribute. Like I'm definitely, attracted to men outside my race. And that has to do, it kind of all goes back to the sexual assault, just because of like, you know, who my assaulter was. And so I just think I find comfort, you know, not being in that realm or whatnot. Sure. But I mean, I think now it's, It's somebody who wants the same fundamental things as I do, someone who leads with authenticity and integrity, somebody who's a good communicator, but also has like a great sense of humor because I love to laugh, and also somebody who has similar interests. I'm not saying they have to be as diehard of a football fan as I am, but like I spend a lot of time at football games. Like I don't want somebody there who's miserable, like I want somebody who enjoys that or is fine to do that. And then, allows me to kind of have my freedom to do that. And, I'll do the same. I feel like that was something that was a miss in my last relationship too, is, things that I was really passionate about, maybe he wasn't, and things that he was really passionate about. Like I made a genuine effort to be present and to try to see it from his perspective and enjoy myself while I was there. But, that wasn't really reciprocated. So, and I'm open. Like, I don't care where he comes from. I don't care if he's, my DoorDash delivery guy. I don't care.
That's even better. He's bringing you food.
I know. Right. And probably something I shouldn't be eating because I feel like there's not a lot of healthy options out there, but, I'm thinking about doing a pivot for my season 4 of the podcast. And I hope I can pull it off, but it would be an interesting little dating experiment. So.
Ooh, you can totally pull it off. I can't wait to listen. I have one thing to say, and then you want to kind of like bring us around. Okay. So I was like laughing inside. I almost laughed out loud, but I didn't want you to think I was laughing at you. But I came across, I don't know if you saw it on my stories, which is totally fine if you didn't, but I came across this Bumble profile of this guy who had 4 pictures on his profile of him holding a basketball, but like in different ways. Like he was like, and it was like, and I'm just thinking about you love football so much. I was just imagining you in your dating profile, just being like,
I could do that. I have a football right here.
Hold it for us. Hold it for us. This will be your clip.
I'll show you this one. Isn't this badass? I could just be like,
All right, everybody has to
go so long.
That's the best. So Erin, can you tell us a little bit about like the sort of mission of your podcast? And then what's the worst thing and best thing about doing a podcast that's about like dating and relationships and stuff?
Oh gosh. Yeah. So my mission has always been the same. Like if I can use my voice to help even just one person, then like I'll feel fulfilled. What I didn't anticipate happening is like making these incredible friendships with people all over the world. Like I had no idea. I take that with great responsibility. So I do my best. Like if somebody emails me, DMs me, sends me a voice note, I always respond. It may not be in a timely manner, but I always get back to everybody. But I mean, even just like people like yourselves, like we would have never connected if it weren't for the podcast. And I just think like that repeats itself over and over again in this world. And it has been absolutely incredible. So I've taken to, I wasn't sure in the beginning, like if I was helping men and women or both. And it's funny because I speak primarily to women, but I do have a lot of like male followers and men who reach out and men who I've actually helped find, their significant other, whatever, which was really cool. Sidebar, this week, I got to meet one in person. So I had helped a guy in Ohio, a fellow football fan, but not a Chargers fan. And that's how I had originally met him, but he had sworn off dating and everything. And so I, educated him on the apps and showed him how to do it and helped him with his profile. And lo and behold, he's been with the same girl for a little over a year and a half. And so I got to meet her in person. It was fabulous. It was great.
Wow.
And it felt very like, full circle moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my bucket is full by helping others. And I created this community, for women, and I'm absolutely loving that. So if you can just imagine, it's like boss babes in there who are, working on themselves. They're on their personal growth journey. Maybe they need some additional relationship help, and maybe they need help with their mindset, like whatever the case may be. We're in this spot, and we do like a weekly Zoom happy hour and learn from each other, support each other, inspire each other. And it like every time I jump on, I literally am like overwhelmed, like full, like emotional, like this is the fucking coolest thing I think I've ever been a part of. And so, and that's the beauty of this journey too, right? We don't know where it's taking us, but I am like along for the ride. Like, I don't care. We can whip around turns and go up and down and whatever, upside down. I'm here for it. So, that's my why. And I forget the other question because I squirrel all the time and
I think you handled it. What's the hardest part? Yeah.
I think the hardest part is I had to catch myself. So when I started the podcast, it came from a spoofy Instagram, and I am really good at the self-deprecating humor. So I would post a picture like of a guy I was going to go on a date with or his profile. And I loved to write a witty caption. So I would do that and people loved it and they ate it up. But what I recognized is like when you're talking about that and you're talking about yourself in that regard all the time, or just sharing bad dating stories, like you're attracting more of that to you. And so I really had to like pump the brakes and, reevaluate that. So maybe it's not as much fun anymore, like for audience members or whatnot. But at the same time, like, I don't want to be 65 still telling you guys about, Joe with his dead bass who I'm swiping, left on Bumble. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be doing that, unfortunately. Like, I mean, I'm sure that would be great for all of us, but like, yeah. I want to be playing football and sitting in the friends and family section. Okay. I'm going to make my whole profile me with this football, and I'm just going to send it to you, Leanna.
Please. I cannot wait to share this. We're sharing this on the Patreon. Can we share this on our Patreon?
You can do whatever you want with it, girlfriend. Get somebody who's into football to swipe right.
I love that you said that. And, I've been thinking about that a lot too, is like, I used to do these like Bumble roasts on social media, and I stopped doing it because it no longer served me. And I felt like all I was doing on the apps was looking for the negative. And I'll post stuff every now and then if I come across a profile that's like wild and I just think it's funny. But I think that you're right, that the more we kind of like accept things like that into our life and then dwell on it, the more likely we're maybe attracting that. Mm-hmm. But I also think, like, for myself, with like still having dating stories that are hilarious, that I'm using that as a way to have boundaries, which I never had, and to be able to say to the person that I like, I don't like you.
I love you. You're so cute. But it's so true. Like I went on a, okay, so I think I'm better in person than I probably am on an app. And so I went to like a friend's performance the other night. He was just playing. Well, do you know Chris from Listen to Your Heart?
Oh yeah.
So he's been performing at like the Marriott over here. So it's like I have no excuse. It's like a 15-minute drive. Like I can have a cocktail. I can watch his music, and I can try to get people to tip him, and like also order him flatbread pizzas for when he's done and hungry. So like it's just a win-win for everybody involved. And so there's this man that is there, and like, we had great chemistry and a vibe, and whatever, great conversation. And so he asked me out, and I was like, well, like there was something about it that I'm like, okay, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But like, there was something that I just was a little bit reserved, but I was like, is this in your head or is this like reality? So it's like, there's no harm if I say, totally fine to meet up with you. How about I just meet you at the hotel again? Because then I'm with, Chris is there, safe space. I can watch him perform. I'm going to have a good time no matter what, because I'd probably be doing that anyway. So I did, but I want your guys' opinion on this. Okay. So first date, we meet great conversation. I chose not to drink that night. I had actually gotten food poisoning, like TMI, a few nights before. And so I was like, I was just not ready.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Was not ready. He had a full bottle of red wine. This is a Wednesday night. He had a full bottle of red wine, then had another glass of wine. And then when I was ready to leave, because I left probably, I think I left at like 10:30. I was like, you know what? Like, I wasn't drinking, Chris was long done. We were having nice conversation, but I was like, I'm not, it's a Wednesday night. Like, I don't need to stay out all night. The bartender had brought him another glass, before I walked out. And that was a really big, like, red flag for me, right? Am I in the wrong in that?
No, I think I would feel the same. I mean, matchmakers will say 2 drink max.
Right. Yeah. Patty Singer, like that's her, line.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't think so, because there could be a couple things. He could be nervous, but also like, that's a lot. That is a lot of alcohol. That's even a lot on like a Saturday night.
Yeah.
So
especially when the other person isn't drinking, you know what I mean? Like, and obviously, like when he met me, like all of us were kind of like drinking and stuff, but I just thought this isn't, giving me kind of like the impression I want. So then, of course he said, please text me when I got home and all that. It did that. But then it was like, he didn't stop texting. It was just like, text. And like, so fully, I got the good morning text and more. And then it was like, okay, so I can't remember how he phrased it, but it was like very implied. Like, so I made us dinner reservations on Sunday and I booked a circus, whatever it's called, Circus Soleil tickets for Wednesday. And I was like, dude, I've met you twice. And the first time was like, we just conversated at a bar. The second time like was a date, but you like, I can't even remember, or like, I'm just surprised you remembered like everything that happened. You know what I mean? Like after all that wine.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I got to put on my big girl panties and, do what you did, Leanna, and just say, so appreciative of the offer, but, this is just moving a little too fast for me,
Yeah. And what was his response?
Can we be friends and still hang out? And I was like, but
also like, no.
Small doses. Yeah.
See, we're at the point where I'm at, I would have been like, no.
No, thank you. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny though? Like, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I pick up on social cues pretty good, but I was like, I don't think he picked up on any social cue,
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but
well, Erin, you have been so amazing to have on. I like you even more now. I want to go out to LA and go to Chris's show with you.
Oh my God, please do.
Can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he's not back until the following Friday, but yeah, anytime, you're always welcome. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess you can come if you want. Jared's in the phase of denying invites.
I'm like hibernating.
Yeah.
I know. I love that. And I want to hear more about that journey. I also, we could always look at your app and I could help you just see what's out there, like from a different perspective. That's always fun for me. You know what I mean?
Are you talking to me right now?
Yes, I'm talking to you. I mean, I don't know. You told me the last time I think I saw you that you took your app offline. So.
Yeah, I've been off and Leanna's trying to talk me
back on.
So we'll see. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, Erin, just to kind of like wrap this up into a cute little bow, do you have any last words of like wisdom or something that you want to manifest for yourself, like as, to kind of close us off?
Oh gosh. Obviously everybody knows what I want to manifest. I want to manifest, my best football life. So yeah. So if season 4 gets pulled off, Leanna, you will see more pictures of footballs than your little heart could ever desire. So I will keep you posted on that. But I just feel like 2020 is a great year, and of 2022, excuse me, or like you're throwing back. So 22 is my lucky number. That goes way back to Clyde Drexler, who was a basketball player back in the day. But anyways, I just feel like for anybody out there who, wants a relationship or whatever the case is that they want, like now is the time. Like, we don't have to look at this like, oh, we're already almost in May. Like, no. Like, there is so much possibility. And here's the thing. All it takes is one time. That's it. All it takes is one time, one meeting, saying hi to somebody, behind you that's not your therapist in the line at Whole Foods, or, you know what I mean? Like, just think about like how we met, like through a mutual friend. Sometimes you don't think about that. And I think we lose sight of that. And that's why people meet each other when they're on vacation, because they're fully present and they're in this like good energy vibe. If we went throughout our day with that same energy and presence and not being on our phones and not being like rushing from A to Z, there's a ton of possibilities all around us. And I think that's, my biggest takeaway, and what I would challenge everybody else with is like, be present and don't give up. Like, keep the hope, because it's out there.
Beautiful.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Well, plug all of your things.
All of my things. Okay. Yeah. So you can find me at You're Such a Catch. It's YOURE, Such a Catch on Instagram. My TikTok is nowhere near as good as yours.
Stop.
Your TikTok's great. I'm always like intrigued. Yeah. You have great advice. So, but yeah, on all social media platforms. And if any ladies out there are curious and want to check out my community, please do. You can find my community on my website. So it's yoursuchacatch.com, but happy to give you a trial run in there. And I think everybody will love it. So
yeah. Yay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you again for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome. I love you guys.